Dr. Steven Greer has responded to the latest Jake Barber piece that came out on Newsnation over the weekend, right? The egg-shaped UFO that, then the crash recovery video, the psionics, all of this, right? We're going to jump into all that, get Dr. Greer's response. And I've got a couple more clips you're going to want to see. One specifically from Dr. Greer years ago, and another of Ross Coulthart responding to one specific aspect of that piece that came out on Saturday about Jake talking about him and his team, going out in the field and performing psionic experiments, if you will, right? So stay with me. First, I want to give a big shout out to Red Panda Koala. You can find him on Twitter for pointing out a couple of these clips for me. Links are down below. Go check it out. All right, let's jump to this first clip of Dr. Steven Greer responding to Jake Barber and his story, and pay attention to the very last portion of the clip because there's a nice little Easter egg there. Yeah, here we go.
Up most of the night dealing with some of the fallout from the tabloid show that came out last night. And so I want to just comment on this a little bit. Jake Barber and I have worked together, and I first met him about a year and a half, maybe 20 months ago. He's a special forces guy who is also embedded with a major aerospace company. Now, I know what all those affiliations are. He did not disclose it. Now, the important part of what came out, if you take out all the other noise and the production itself on that Newsnation show, is that he and a group of other people are beginning to put their toe in the water, releasing information and what they've been involved with in retrieving extraterrestrial vehicles, or the pop culture now, or government acronym term now is NHI, non-human intelligence craft. And there is a great deal more than what you saw in that episode. So the original plan, just to let people know what was originally thought to be done, and its evolution, some may say devolution over the last few months, is that there was going to be a collection of all that hard evidence of these operations, the craft, the operators, the locations, et cetera, and so on. And that was going to be done anonymously. They were not going to reveal who they were for OPSEC, operational security reasons, and their own safety, both legally and personally. As you saw in the show, people have been killed. He didn't go into details. I know the details, and there have been recent fatalities related to these operations of people trying to come forward. And we're at this inflection point where we need these people to come forward full Monty, right? However, the problem is the United States government is lagging in instituting the protections, the executive orders, the congressional bills to protect and to make a pathway out of these operations that have been run illegally, so that the people involved are not prosecuted. They have amnesty, they have physical protection, and there's a robust effort in law enforcement here and abroad to get these corrupt and illegal projects under control, which is a very heavy lift. There's a separate team that I'm advising is involved with that part of it. That's separate from Jake Barber and his whistleblower team. But I've introduced them, so they know each other.
All right, so we'll get to that Easter egg there at the end in just a second. But first, let's comment on, what he said there at the beginning, right? He's calling it a tabloid show, right? That Newsnation piece. And I'll put some links in the description for videos I've made all about that particular show that came out. Feel free to check them out. Again, links down below if you want more information on that. Now, let's get to that last little Easter egg, right? So apparently he's working with another team that he's introduced to Jake, and they know each other, right? What does this mean? Again, there's more information coming out. If you remember, Dr. Greer said we were going to get, a lot of information was going to come out, right, over the weekend. And sounds like he's disappointed, right, clearly. And I think a lot of people are disappointed in some way, again, depending on your expectations. But again, it seems like, well, we're just more people, more information coming out, over time. Again, people pointing out, people making promises that this is going to happen on this day. And I just think, I guess it's just part of the UFO community. But anyway, look, let's get to this next part, which is what a great find by Red Panda Koala, by the way. This is Dr. Steven Greer talking about psionics and specifically P3 operators. And more will be coming out about this because it connects to Michael Herrera's story and Jake Barber's story, right, as well. Now, you know what? I'm just going to play the piece and then we'll come back and talk about it.
And you'll see that the P3 operators, these psionic operators that are operational at these bases where I've been now, they tend to look for left-handed people, bi and gay males, and females that have innate intuitive abilities. And that's who they will go to in these poor areas and abduct them using the craft you just saw from Mr. Herrera. They're then taken to a few sites, and we know where they are. One's out in the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico, but, it's remote. Most of them end up dying, and the ones who don't are the laborers. And some of them now, I just came back a month ago from an event out near Joshua Tree, 29 Palms Marine Base, where there's some people, and he's got several now that are defecting with him to the Disclosure Project.
What? Did y'all notice up on that slide, right, what it said? Let's take a look at that, right? Left-handed people and bi or gay males, right? So, again, out in the Chihuahuan Desert, I think he just likes saying that, personally. That sounds like a 80s, pop band. And, Dr. Greer has said before that he's flown over these black sites. And in that piece, he's kind of insinuating he's been inside. And that's, again, a different story than he's told before. So, again, going back to me saying that I believe Dr. Greer was trying to connect himself to the Las Vegas bomber, and people say he didn't say that. In fact, he denied it. Yeah, well, he also goes back and forth on things and says different things, right? So, again, just another example, which I've shown many of that. But either way, that's neither here nor there. Now, these P3, again, this is all Michael Herrera's story as well, right? So is more going to come out about that? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of different from Jake's, right? Jake hasn't said this stuff yet, right? Is this where his story is going to go, right? And clearly, is Jake going to come out and say he knows Dr. Greer, right? I think it's just slowly going to roll out, and this is all just going to expand. I don't know, right? If you're as confused as me, I get it. I totally get it, right? It's hard to keep an open mind when it's so confusing, right? I'm keeping an open mind, but not because I'm excited to see what's coming up, but just because I'm so confused. I don't know what the F is going on. So anyway, look, let me know what you think in the comments. And let's take a look at this last clip that I have of Ross Coulthart on Newsnation, okay, after this piece came out on Saturday, and he talked about going to a field with Jake Barber and witnessing some of these psionic abilities.
He went to a field very close to Fort Bragg, where the very elite of the American Special Forces are located, and we actually did CE5 with some of the people who have assisted in the preparation of this film. They are very, very interested, a lot of these elite military operators, in this kind of phenomena. They do not dismiss it. And as you say, Colonel John Blitch is one of those people. And the other two people, Don and Fred, who backed up Jake's story, and they have first-hand experience on the range with Jake, which is quite extraordinary. They are elite Tier 1 military operatives, very highly trained, the absolute creme de la creme of the military special forces in the United States. And it was an honour and indeed a real pleasure to get to know them. They're good human beings. They derive absolutely no benefit from telling me what they've told me and supporting Jake's story. And I find it intriguing because I freely admit, when I first spoke to Jake and I said, so how are we bringing down these craft? And he explained to me it's not the bringing down that's the issue, it's the summoning. How do we get them to come in the first place? And as we all know, there's long been talk, notably Dr. Steven Greer, for example, has talked about something that he calls CE5, where through meditation and some kind of trained meditative psychic involvement with the phenomena, it's been asserted that it's possible to attract the phenomenon. And look, I'll be honest, I was a skeptic about that until I met people who could do it. And I've been in the presence of people who were trained as psionic assists by the US military, and I've watched them.
All right, so there's Ross Coulthart saying he also was skeptical until he went out in a field and experienced it for himself. So I'm sure Ross can understand how the majority of people are skeptical of this, because I would say the majority of people have never been out to a field to witness something like this, right? So I'm sure he's very, right, he can understand, again, how people are skeptical of that, right? I'm sure he's, right? Anybody is. You should be skeptical, right? Just like Ross was, right? So, again, I'm skeptical because I've never been out to that field. I hope that's okay, right? And for other people to be skeptical of this if they haven't gone out to a field, just like Ross said. And what's interesting is he brings up CE5 as if that's the same thing, right? Because the way Dr. Greer is putting it in his psionic, P3 thing, right? It's, you got to be left-handed and gay or bi. So I mean this with all due respect. Is Ross calling Dr. Greer gay or bi, and you know what I mean, like some of the other things, right? And then they also say they take poor, desperate people and then make them into work. Like, well, which is it? Because the CE5 stuff is basically insinuated that anybody can do that and have that ability, right? But if you look at these P3 assets, like it's something different, right? And you got to be hooked up to a machine. You got to go to a secret underground base. Again, I don't know where you stand on this, but I am utterly confused. Again, I have nothing against people being gay or bi, whatever. I don't care. I have friends that are gay and bi and every which way, everything. I personally don't care. I'm just wondering how that means anything, right? I just, what does that mean exactly? So, anyway. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's video. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
Inside my own world of make-believe, kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.